13 spine-chilling tales, terrifying night shift encounters revealed at cursed Target stores. Jessica could hardly believe it. She was standing at the entrance of the local Target, just a few minutes before her first night shift began, fighting off the chill creeping down her spine. The store was eerily empty, shadows stretching along the aisles beneath the buzzing fluorescent lights, which flickered ominously as if the building was warning her to turn back. The heart-pounding opportunity for a job felt more like a daunting curse. Drowning in bills and bills, Jessica's desperate determination to provide for her son overshadowed her immediate fears. As she clocked in, the air was thick with uncertainty. Her coworkers shared quick smiles, but those smiles didn't feel genuine. Everyone seemed to know something she didn't. She felt it in her gut, a chill avoided by daylight but unavoidable now. Still, the swirling anxiety of real-world fears momentarily dissipated in those initial minutes. Each beep of the scanner echoed like her heartbeat, a reminder that at least tonight, she could earn a paycheck. But as midnight struck, Jessica's hopeful bubble burst. An unsettling static crackled through her walkie-talkie. Was it just due to fatigue? She shook her head, convincing herself it was nothing. Yet soon after, words began to form. "They won't let you leave." Shadows stretched along the walls, eerie tendrils reaching for her as hidden fears elongated and morphed. Her job wasn't just mundane, it was uncomfortably sinister. Several unsettling incidents piled up, sending her spiraling into paranoia. An employee disappeared just days before. Whispers swirled that something terrible lurked among the aisles. Stories of an ancient evil threaded through the town's history, tightly woven into the dark fabric of fate. Jessica found herself unnerved and glancing around. What if that darkness was more than folklore? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jessica felt the air change. The shadows pulsed against the backdrop of fluorescent lights. Every aisle felt like a corridor of secrets, every beeping register a reminder of her mounting dread. A door swung shut forcefully behind her, and she stumbled backward, her heart racing in her chest. "Is someone there?" she whispered, her voice trembling as she fought to maintain her composure. Still, silence echoed back like a sinister laugh. Finding herself drawn into the back rooms, she tripped upon a hidden door, wide open. Dust particles danced in the light when she crossed the threshold, revealing remnants of the past, a place steeped in horrors she didn't want to uncover. Photographs of her coworkers were scrawled on the faded walls, faces twisted in fear. Her gut clenched. The familiar knees-weakening realization gripped her. The true terror might be living right inside that tight-knit crew she considered friends. Each step forward drew the noose tighter around her throat. Shadows swirled, voices whispered secrets only she could hear. The store became a predator, feeding off her insecurities and manipulating her fear. In the depths of turmoil and dread, could she trust anyone, or were they all intertwined in a treacherous plot against her? The store's eerie presence loomed larger, and only one question lingered as she stepped deeper into the unknown. What had she truly signed up for on this night shift? Jessica's heart thundered in her chest as she hesitated, staring at the photos plastered on the walls. The eyes of her coworkers, once familiar, now twisted with unrecognizable terror, seemed to follow her every movement. Desperate to escape this chamber of horrors, she turned sharply, only to be met by the imposing darkness of the aisle behind her. A cold draft stirred, rattling a row of empty shopping carts. Her breath caught, the moist air heavy with dampness and whispers. She hadn't noticed it before, but the store's fluorescent lights flickered ominously, casting shadows that danced across the floor like shadows of long-forgotten customers. "What the hell is going on?" she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jessica?" A voice drifted from the darkness, low and gravelly. It was Lisa, a co-worker she had shared awkward small talk with during shifts. Jessica felt a flicker of relief until she noticed a tremor in Lisa's hands. She stepped closer, peering into the shadows surrounding her. "Have you seen the others?" Jessica asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Lisa's eyes darted around, refusing to meet Jessica's. They don't come back. What is happening here?" Jessica's stomach lurched. "What do you mean?" Silence thickened the air. Lisa leaned in closer, the scent of fear radiating from her. "I heard them, in the back rooms. They're changed. They said we have to stop." Jessica snapped, a mix of fear and urgency bubbling over. "We need to get out of here. Now." But the aisles seemed to stretch infinitely, a labyrinth of twisted shelves and fading light. Then she heard a sound, barely audible at first, but growing louder. A disembodied laughter echoed through the darkness, chilling her from the inside out. The lights flickered more violently, plunging the store into darkness just as a shadow darted past her. She instinctively grabbed Lisa's arm. "Coming with me or staying here?" Before Lisa could respond, the laughter grew closer, a cacophony of mocking delight. Suddenly, the lights flashed back on, and Jessica's breath hitched in her throat. Before them stood the figure of a former employee, a man she once saw restocking toiletries. Evan. His face was gouged with deep, ragged lines, eyes hollow and devoid of spirit. "You shouldn't have come here," he rasped, rocking slightly as if caught between realms. "Evan! What happened to you?" Jessica's voice cracked with confusion and horror. He leaned closer, the stench of decay wafting toward her. "They take you, it's too late. Leave before they get you." Jessica pulled at Lisa's arm, tugging her back toward the exit. The words churned in her mind, fear warring with denial. But there was no time for second-guessing. They rushed through the aisles, frantically searching for a way out. As they neared the front of the store, the buzzer rang out again. The doors swung shut with a heavy thud, trapping them inside. A flicker of motion caught her eye, and she turned to see a dozen shadows emerging from the depths of the store, faces twisted and deformed. "Join us," they chanted, voices overlapping, rising into a chilling chorus. "Run!" Jessica screamed, lunging toward the break room. But as they passed through the hallway, it seemed to stretch endlessly, pulling them back into its grasp. She felt an icy grip around her heart as the laughter rose, echoing in a dark rhythm that drowned out her thoughts. The walls closed in, the shadows reached out. Jessica's fighting spirit flickered, but she couldn't let that extinguish. "What do we do?" Lisa cried, panic spilling over. "Find the back exit," Jessica shouted, determination lighting a fire within her. But those shadows moved like ink swirling in water, so close they could taste her fear. As they barreled forward, cursed whispers filled the air. The laughter echoed deeper now, bearing down upon them. Just when Jessica thought they would escape, the floor beneath her shifted, snapping her ankle. She fell, dragging Lisa down with her. "Help! Help!" they shouted, but the chorus of laughter drowned their cries. In the throes of chaos and shadows, a piercing realization struck Jessica. The true malice of the store was not just lurking in the aisles. It was a living entity, hungry for despair, and it wanted her. The inescapable dread hung thick in the air. What more awaited them in the dark heart of this cursed place? As darkness engulfed them, the truth loomed larger than ever. What would she sacrifice to turn back the tide of horror that threatened to consume her? Jessica struggled to push herself off the ground, pain shooting up her leg. Lisa clutched her arm, wide-eyed and shaking, her breaths coming in quick gasps, each heartbeat a reminder of their dire predicament. The laughter, that horrid laughter, filled the air, swirling around them, mocking their every move. Shadows loomed over them, slinking closer. They seemed to grow solid, faces ghastly but familiar, each one a haunting reminder of someone they once knew. "Jessica, what do we do?" Lisa's voice was almost a whimper, as desperate as the helpless cries echoing from afar. "Get up!" Jessica hissed, determination flooding her voice even as dread choked her throat. She pulled herself up, throwing an arm around Lisa for support, though every step sent jolts of agony racing through her ankle. They stumbled towards the break room, the narrow hallway stretching like a dark tunnel before them, empty store shelves whispering secrets, full of terror. Each shelf was filled with eerie products eerily illuminating their path, bottles lined with labels that promised hope but were stained with the memories of their missing colleagues. "We have to find a phone," Jessica urged, pushing past the chill that threatened to envelop her heart. "We can call for help, we need to get out. Now." But with every passing moment, the shadows felt more alive. They whispered of resignation, of surrender. "Join us," they echoed in a relentless hum, echoing Jessica's thoughts, leaking into her mind like venom. "Don't listen to them," Jessica shouted, shaking off her doubts. She pushed through the break room door, knowing it was a real escape but a stop for a moment. Inside, stacks of boxes loomed ominously, filled with remnants of mundane items that now felt sinister. The room smelled stale, filled with desperation steeped in shadows. She fumbled for the landline phone wedged beneath the clutter, praying for a flicker of hope. No signal, she cursed, her fingertips brushing against the dead receiver. They had no way to call for backup, no way to reach outside. The panic surged again, threatening to draw her back into despair. Then she heard it, a low, guttural growl that pulsed like a living thing in the air. Lisa went rigid beside her, paralyzed by fear. "Jessica," she whispered, awe and dread mingling in her voice. They turned to face the door, growing pale at the sight, dark shapes piled against it, pushing, threatening to break through. "Stay close," Jessica breathed, trying her best to sound firm. But the tremor in her voice betrayed her. The shadows pressed forward, eager to claim her. "We have to find another exit." They ducked low, weaving around the boxes. The shadows' laughter dulled into a cacophony as she quickly eyed the window at the far end of the room. But as they moved toward it, the laughter shifted, rising dramatically, taunting them like a sinister melody. Suddenly, a figure stepped into the dim light. It was Evan again, but twisted further, more animal-like, as if the darkness had consumed him. "You'll never leave," he rasped, stretching a thin hand towards them, not as a former colleague but as something hungry. "No!" Jessica shouted, grabbing Lisa's arm. They raced back, barely dodging the claw of Evan's outstretched fingers. The thrumming laughter morphed into a discordant rhythm, matching the frantic pounding of Jessica's heart. "We can't die here!" Jessica yelled, adrenaline flooding her veins. Time was slipping away, and they needed an escape, some way to sever this grasp of dark despair. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a maintenance door at the far end of the room, cracked open just enough. Her breath hitched in hope. "That way!" she screamed, almost tripping over her own feet as they dashed toward the glimmer of possible salvation. As the shadows surged behind them, gnashing and reaching, Jessica pushed through the door, pulling Lisa along. The sound of defiance rumbled from their pursuers, and the grip of darkness clawed at Jessica's back. Would they finally escape? In the split second they passed through the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them with a bone-chilling roar. Darkness enveloped them once more, but not empty. This was different. Jessica felt the floor beneath her shift again, and panic flooded her veins once more. "Where are we?" Lisa gasped, trembling. Jessica squinted into the abyss, fear snaking through her veins. "I don't know, but we can't stay here." "Not now." Suddenly, a burst of light flickered in the distance, illuminating an eerie path, but shadows writhed in the corners, hungry and waiting. Something deeper called to her what awaited them in the unknown. Would the light lead them to safety or into an even darker nightmare? The light pulsed ahead, flickering like a dying star, drawing Jessica and Lisa closer. They exchanged worried glances, their breath condensed in the cold air around them. Jessica's heart raced, each thump echoing in her ears. Lisa looked ready to bolt, fear glinting in her eyes. "Do you see that?" Jessica asked, urgency twisting in her gut. They moved toward the light, the shadows writhing, whispering tales that made her skin crawl. "We have to keep going. There's no other choice." Each step was a leap of faith, the air thickening with every shriek that echoed from the depths of darkness behind them. "Please, let it be safe," Lisa murmured, her voice barely audible. As they neared the glowing aura, it revealed its true form, an old security office, the monitor screens flashing static. A flicker of hope ignited within Jessica. "In here!" she exclaimed, shoving the door open. They stumbled inside, the walls lined with outdated technology. The windows were barred, shadow-clad, yet the faint light offered a sinister reassurance. Jessica's eyes darted to the phones on the desk. "Maybe we can call for help," she whispered, unsure if she was trying to convince Lisa or herself. "Jessica!" Lisa's voice pulled her back, panic replacing her fleeting hope. The door shuddered violently as a clawed hand crashed against it, splintering the wood. They both recoiled, dread washing over them like a cold tide. "We can't stay here. We need to barricade the door," Jessica shouted, adrenaline spurring her movements. They rushed to push a heavy filing cabinet against the door, dragging it with frantic urgency. The shadows moaned outside, the unmistakable sound of hunger emanating from the cracks. Are they even human anymore?" Lisa gasped, pushing her hair from her face, eyes wild. The question clung to the air, heavy with dread. Jessica's heartbeat echoed her uncertainty. What remained of Evan and their colleagues? But thoughts of despair had to be banished. "We can't give in," Jessica said firmly, forcing a resolve into her shaky voice. "We need to find a way to escape this place." As they secured the barricade, a sudden silence fell, swallowing the cacophony outside. Jessica's instinct screamed that something was off. "What's happening?" She peered through the barred window, eyes straining against the darkness. The faint light turned ominous, illuminating the room in an unsettling glow. "Do you think they're gone?" Lisa's whispered question felt more like a prayer. "Maybe they gave up, maybe we're safe." But just as hope began to revive, a shadow darted past the window, its shape elongated and grotesque. Jessica's stomach dropped. "No, they're still here." A series of frantic knocks echoed from the door alongside soft, desperate voices. "Let us in! We've come to help." Lisa pressed against Jessica, eyes wide, trembling. "Jessica, what if it's a trick?" she whispered, a cold sweat on her brow. Their pursuers could mimic the voices of their friends. Was this fear just another trap? "Stay back," Jessica ordered, her heart pounding. "We can't trust anyone." Her instincts screamed for them to flee, but where could they go? The shadows were endless, and the office offered no true refuge. Suddenly, a low scraping sound reverberated across the room, emanating from the corner behind some stacked boxes. Jessica's breath caught. "What was that?" she asked, terror curling in her stomach. Before they could react, shadows surged around the walls, twisting and coiling, the very essence of fear made manifest. The laughter returned, high-pitched and mocking, echoing through the tiny office. Faint whispers turned monstrous, screaming at them to join the twisted realm where once they thrived. "Something's coming," Jessica said, darting for the back door, only to find it locked tight. They had reached the end of their choices. The shadows coalesced into a grotesque mass, and time slowed. She grabbed Lisa's hand, holding on as tightly as she could. "We have to stick together. Whatever comes, we face it side by side." Just then, the door burst open, the howling laughter swelling to a maddened crescendo. The darkness rushed in, and the last remnants of their hope flickered like that light in the distance. As the shadows closed around them, Jessica felt the weight of despair bearing down. Would they escape the encroaching abyss, or was this where they would finally surrender to the horror? The darkness loomed larger, a gaping maw eager to claim them, and the light that flickered now was slipping away. Would they be swallowed whole, or was there still a chance to break free? As the world faded away around them, one question dominated her mind: what awaited them beyond the veil of shadow? Would they return to the light, or was there no escape from this hell? Jessica clutched Lisa's hand fiercely as the darkness rushed into the room. Their eyes were wide with terror as the shadows twisted together into a swirling mass, a funnel of jagged darkness that pulsed with malicious intent. They moved instinctively, stepping back until their backs hit the wall, bracing for whatever was coming. "Stay close," Jessica yelled, but her voice was nearly lost amidst the cacophony of shrieks and laughter. The office, their brief sanctuary, felt like it was collapsing around them. Each sound echoed with unearthly glee, turning the air thick with dread. Then, just as suddenly as the shadows had surged, silence fell. The world stilled. Shadows paused mid-motion, as if waiting, watching. Jessica's heart hammered so loudly it drowned out her thoughts. She felt Lisa tremble beside her, her breathing shallow and quick. A faint whisper slipped through the silence. "It's just a game. Will you play?" The voice was childlike, sweet, and yet laced with something grotesque, something that wormed its way into Jessica's mind. "No," she muttered, shaking her head, desperate to push back against the encroaching dread. "We want to play." But the shadows shifted again, contorting into faces horrible, beloved faces twisted by malice. Jessica's stomach turned as she saw Evan's face in the flickering darkness, eyes wide and gleaming, devoid of the warmth that once characterized him. "Let us in! We're your friends!" he exclaimed, his voice ringing with a chilling enthusiasm. She recoiled. "Stop! You're not him! Jessica! You have to trust me!" the shadow whispered. "You can't leave, we want to let you. Don't you see? There's no escape. Join us. Don't listen!" Lisa shouted, breaking the spell that hung in the air. "They're lying!" With renewed urgency, Jessica turned to gather her remaining wits. "We have to break through the back door, it's our only shot." They charged toward the locked exit, but the very air felt heavy, pushing them back. The shadows roiled, trying to hold them in place. Jessica felt an icy grip slide around her ankle, yanking her down as laughter filled the room. "Help!" Lisa screamed, falling into a crouch, trying to pull her friend back to safety. But Jessica was quickly losing strength against the malevolent force dragging her down. "Fight it!" she yelled, straining against the cold that enveloped her. It felt like fingers clawing at her, unrelenting in their grasp. "We have to stay together. Jess. I can't hold on." Lisa's voice quivered, laced with despair. "What if we don't make it?" Terror flooded Jessica's heart, but she forced herself to think. If they let go, the darkness would swallow them whole. "Do you remember the light?" Jessica gasped, the memory surfacing unbidden. "The one that drew us here? We must find it again." In that moment, desperation fueled her. With a sudden surge of strength, she ripped her ankle free from the icy grip. She turned and pulled Lisa up, weaving through shadows, ducking and dodging as grotesque faces formed, snapping jaws with every step. But the door loomed ahead, and Jessica felt hope reigniting despite the weight of fear that pressed against her. Almost there. Then the door jolted, rattling violently as if something massive was pushing against the other side. The shadows howled, fury pulsing through them, and a new voice emerged through the chaos, guttural and deep. "You think you can escape? You belong to us now. Keep moving!" Jessica shouted, her mind racing. "Whatever it takes." They reached the door, and Jessica pounded on it, heart racing. "Someone help us! Please!" The shouting grew louder, mixing with the terrifying laughter crackling around them. The door shook again, then it split open. Light poured in, blinding and warm, illuminating everything in a stark brilliance that shattered the shadows around them. For a second, they stood in the glow, wondering if they had really reached safety. But then, from within the blinding light, a figure stepped forward, a dark silhouette. Strange, long hands extended towards them, smiling teeth gleaming. "Welcome home," it hissed, and just like that, the light dimmed, flickering beneath the shadowy veil that crept closer. Jessica felt her blood run cold. "Run!" she screamed, but was it too late? As the shadows closed in once more, and the figure loomed larger, who would seize the light, and who would be lost forever? The struggle was only just beginning. The world narrowed for Jessica as the figure stepped fully into view, the shadows swirling like a storm around it. The smile was wide, too wide, almost stretching beyond its mouth, revealing teeth that looked too sharp, too alive. "You chose the wrong door," it said, voice echoing like cracked ice on a frozen lake. Panic surged through Jessica. She grabbed Lisa's hand, adrenaline pounding in her veins. This way! They darted sideways, but the shadows seemed to shift and ripple, blocking their path. Laughter echoed menacingly, and familiar faces melded into the darkness, their eyes hollow mirrors of despair. Jessica felt nausea rise in her throat. They could feel the haunted memories, friends, family twisted and warped like a funhouse mirror. Let them go! Lisa screamed, her voice cracking. You can't have us! The darkness responded with a shriek that made Jessica's bones rattle. The figure took a step forward, its long arms reaching closer, fingers curling like vines searching for soil. Stay back! Jessica shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. She yanked Lisa around, and they scrambled toward a jagged wall of shadows sharp and angled like broken glass. Ahead, a flicker of light caught Jessica's eye. It pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, a beckoning glow that felt both comforting and terrifying. We need to get to that light, she urged, pulling Lisa behind her. They made a break for it, dodging grasping hands that clawed at their clothes, latching onto their skin with icy grasps. Jessica felt her heart pound as she stumbled past twisted remnants of her past faces she missed, voices that haunted her dreams. Jessica! Come back! Evan's voice rang out, chilling her to the bone. No! She shouted, shaking her head violently. You're not real! Don't you miss me? The shadowed apparition of Evan asked, its voice dripping with sorrowful seduction. We can be together again if you just let go. Don't listen! Lisa cried, grabbing at Jessica's sleeve. They were inches from the light now, and with every second, the shadows felt closer, pressing against them like a suffocating shroud. With a final burst of will, Jessica pushed through the despair, tearing them both forward toward the gleaming promise. Please! I can't lose you too! She yelled, and in her mind she can't help but wonder, was she fighting to save Lisa or herself? They broke through the last barrier. The light enveloped them instantly, washing warmth through their chilled bodies. But as the brilliant facade surrounded them, laughter erupted anew, echoing sharply in the brightness. Suddenly, the light seemed to morph, folding and shifting like a curtain. It began to twist into shapes, forming a portal of shimmering energy. Within it, dark figures writhed. Jessica squinted, recognizing the outlines of people she knew, but their faces were all wrong, distorted by evil glee. Welcome! The figure from before reappeared, this time gleaming in the radiant light. You'll play here with us forever, one to you? Jessica's breath caught in her throat. A rush of dread filled her, heavy and suffocating. They hadn't escaped. They'd walked right into a new trap. Lisa! We have to, but before she could finish, the light blinked, flickering like faulty wiring as shadows reached out once more. Their laughter merged, forming a dissonant symphony of madness and delight. The walls began to close in, the laughter a wave crashing over them, threatening to pull them under. Jessica could feel the nightmare rising, a growing tide of despair as she struggled between the light and the shadows. Hold on! Jessica cried, though her grip was slipping. Was the light a haven, or a portal to something worse? But before she could figure it out, the world around them exploded into darkness. What lay beyond the light? Would they find salvation or something infinitely worse? The darkness swallowed them whole. Jessica and Lisa felt as if they were plummeting through a bottomless pit. A cold void surrounded them, suffocating and heavy. Time stretched, elongated into an eternity of dread that seeped into their bones. Jessica's screams echoed within her, but no sound emerged, trapped between her terror and the enclosing shadows. When the free fall ended, they landed hard on a cold, damp floor that reeked of decay. Struggling to her feet, Jessica blinked, trying to process the horror around her. They were in a cavernous space filled with flickering fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps. Where are we? Lisa whispered, fear leaking into her voice. I don't know, Jessica replied. Her heart thumped wildly, a drum of dread in her chest. The shadows seemed to pulse with life, lurking just beyond the flickering lights. She could sense them shifting, swirling like a dark fog, whispering secrets she dared not hear. As their eyes adjusted, they began to see shapes, grotesque figures loomed just beyond the periphery of light. Faces twisted in eternal anguish, each one a reflection of something lost, something they once cherished. Jessica staggered back, her breath hitching. Oh no, not them. The faces of her friends reached out from the edges of the light, mouths agape in silent screams. Shadows toyed with their forms, distorting their features, transforming familiar warmth into icy despair. Jessica! Evan's voice rang out again, more haunting this time, echoing off the walls. Help us! Don't listen! Jessica yelled, feeling the urge to run. She grabbed Lisa's wrist, dragging her toward a small doorway at the far end of the room, where the shadows seemed less dense. This way! We have to get away! They sprinted, but the shadows lunged forward, wrapping around their ankles, dragging at their feet like 1,000 icy fingers. Jessica could feel their pull, a tugging desperation that made her want to look back, to reach for the familiar faces. The corridor twisted and warped as they ran, fracturing her sense of direction. The laughter grew louder, a cacophony, a blend of joy and horror that drowned reason. It was as if the shadows themselves were rejoicing in their fear. Stay with us, Jessica. They whimpered, voices blending into a macabre serenade. Jessica shut her eyes tight, refusing to succumb to their siren song. Hold on! Lisa shouted, pulling Jessica away from the grasp of the shadows. They surged forward, pushing through the doorway, but the instant they crossed the threshold, the air changed. It was colder, sharper, like a knife gliding along her skin. On the other side, they found themselves in a long, narrow hall lined with doors, each one marked with strange symbols and flickering lights like a countdown timer. Which one? Jessica gasped, confusion seizing her heart. Every door felt like it could either save them or seal their fate. Guess we pick one, Lisa suggested, her voice trembling. I'd rather take a chance than stay here. Before Jessica could answer, an ear-splitting shriek echoed down the hall, and a shadowy figure erupted from the nearest door, charging at them with blinding speed. Run! Now! Jessica screamed, and they surged forward, terror propelling them. But as they fled, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever lay on the other side of these doors might be worse than the shadows. Don't let it catch us! Lisa cried. With every step, the shadow figure gained ground, and Jessica felt the dark tendrils wrap tighter around her mind, whispering doubts, fears, tempting her to stop, to give in. We have to choose! Jessica shouted. Which one? But then, from the end of the hall, one door began to glow brighter than the others. Over there! She shouted, hope flaring for a moment. Yet, as she reached for the doorknob, thick darkness pooled around her feet like quicksand, pulling her down, dragging her away from the door that promised freedom. In that moment, she realized that choosing a door might be the last choice she ever made. Which one would lead to the salvation they sought, and which would plunge them deeper into the abyss? Jessica felt the darkness wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Panic clawed at her throat. I can't! I can't! She gasped, a visceral fight igniting in her gut. Let go! Just run! Lisa shouted, yanking at her wrist. The shadows moved like liquid nightmare, swirling and pulsating, but Jessica was rooted in fear, her vision locked on the glowing door. Jessica! Lisa's voice echoed in her ears, urgency threading through the terror. Please! With an effort that felt monumental, Jessica tore her gaze away, but not without a final glimpse of the glowing door, beckoning like a mirage in a desolate wasteland. The shadowy figure pressed ever closer, its snarl an unholy melody that harmonized with their terror. The next door loomed in front of them, battered, covered in scratches that looked like claw marks, as if something desperate had tried to claw its way out. This was their moment. Together, they rammed the door open, crashing into a cramped space filled with broken furniture and peeling wallpaper. The scent of mildew and dread enveloped them. What is this place? Jessica panted, scanning the dark corners. The flickering lights barely illuminated grotesque shapes that seemed to shift as if alive with malicious intent. No idea, Lisa whispered. Her eyes darted nervously. But we can't stay here. Before they could move, the door slammed shut behind them, a deafening thud that resonated in the confines of the tiny room. They spun around, hearts racing. A heavy darkness pressed against the walls, and they could hear the faintest whispers, scratchy, hushed voices that tugged at their sanity. Are they talking? Jessica felt the cold creep down her spine, a chill that pierced the heart of her resolve. Shh! Lisa hissed, raising a finger to her lips. She strained to listen. It's coming from the wall, I think. Suddenly, a series of knocks rang through the room, rhythmic and relentless. The whispers escalated into frantic murmurs, mixing together like a chaotic chant. Let us out, join us, don't leave us. A flickering light caught Jessica's attention across the room. A mirror, cracked and smeared, reflected not their faces but twisted versions of themselves, hollow eyes, twisted grins. No! Jessica shouted, stepping back as bile rose in her throat. Lisa clasped her hands over her ears. It's all in your head, she shouted, desperation cracking her voice. Just ignore it. But ignoring wasn't an option. The air around them thickened, the whispers growing into a deafening cacophony. They were drowning in the noise, losing themselves in the terror of it all. Look for another way out, Jessica yelled, her spirit faltering as beads of sweat dripped down her forehead, a weight of helplessness settling on her chest. Lisa moved to a corner, her hands fumbling along the wall. There's gotta be something. The knocking intensified, now sounding like pounding fists. You have to choose. You have to choose. Echoed in the back of Jessica's mind, reverberating painfully against her skull. Jessica's breath quickened as she watched Lisa working frantically. Time stretched again, and each pounding knock began to take on a physical form, a wave of dark energy crashing against them, threatening to swallow them whole and pull them into the void. I found something. Lisa's voice broke through the din. She pointed at a wooden panel that looked out of place, barely hanging by a hinge. Help me with this. They threw themselves at the panel, and it creaked open, revealing a cramped tunnel. A stale breeze blew through, smelling of burnt rubber. Get in, Jessica urged, glancing fearfully at the shaking walls, the sinister whispers curling around them. With one last glance back at the madness swirling, they dove into the tunnel, feeling the darkness close in behind them, a cold breath at their backs. As they crawled deeper, the passage twisted and turned, stretching impossibly. Every muscle screamed, urging them to stop, but the shadows whispered, promising something sweet just beyond the dark. Then, just as they reached a turning point, a chilling laugh erupted from the shadows behind them, sharp and slicing through hope. You can't escape. Jessica's heart raced. Where do we go? And just like that, she realized, this was no escape. It was a descent deeper into an unsolvable nightmare. Follow the light ahead, Lisa murmured, hope flickering in her eyes again, but as they moved forward, they saw a figure silhouetted in the dim glow. A burst of panic gripped Jessica's throat. What if it's waiting for us? The figure loomed larger, the laughter intensifying, and in that moment, both girls understood, choices could lead to salvation, or doom. What do we do? Jessica's voice trembled, her pulse roaring in her ears. Find out who holds the keys to the next door or confront the darkness. But would choosing the light bring them freedom? Or was it merely a trap shrouded in false hope? They crawled through the narrow tunnel, the chill of the air wrapping around them like a sheet of ice. Each breath they took felt ragged, painful, a harsh reminder of their reality. Jessica could feel the darkness behind them, a living entity pressing forward, daring them to look back. The laughter continued, echoing off the walls, a twisted harmony that sent shivers of dread coursing through her. Keep going, Lisa urged, her eyes wide, reflecting raw terror. Just focus on the light. But the light ahead flickered unpredictably, like a dying star, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls, taunting them. Their hands scraped against rough stone, the ground uneven beneath them. Jessica's knees burned with effort, but she pressed on, driven by a desperate need to escape. Every sound, the distant laughter, the whispers creeping back into their ears, masked the movement of the shadows behind them. Lisa's voice quivered, drawing Jessica's attention. Do you hear that? And she did. As they crawled, something shifted in the stillness. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. Join us. Become one of us. So much better here. Jessica's heart plummeted. Those voices, they weren't just echoes. They belonged to something, or someone, calling out from the abyss of the dark. I don't want to be here, she screamed, her voice echoing through the oppressive air. Neither do I, Lisa cried back, her fingers now pressed against the stone with mounting urgency. Just a bit further. With every movement, the light pulsed, illuminating faces in the shadows pale, twisted, their mouths stretching into grotesque smiles. A collective horror washed over them. Ghostly figures floated, flickering in and out, reaching for the girls with hollow hands. Run! Jessica shouted, panic surging through her veins in hot waves. They pushed themselves forward, breaths coming faster, harder. But the laughter followed, echoing along the stone like a haunting melody. You'll never escape. The passage narrowed further, walls closing in as they plunged deeper into the dark. A flick of hope arose, the light ahead brightened, almost blinding. Jessica squinted, feeling a warmth that was strange and inviting. But doubts swiftly followed. What if it's a trap? She whispered desperately. Then we'll face it together, Lisa replied, determination cutting through her fear. Together, they surged toward the light. As they neared, a large opening emerged, the light spilling out like molten gold, revealing a vast chamber. It was eerily beautiful, with walls of luminescent crystal that glimmered, casting reflections and creating an illusion of space far larger than the tunnel. But as they stepped inside, the door clanged shut behind them, sealing their exit. What have we done? Jessica breathed, feeling the floor tremble beneath her feet. The laughter had ceased, replaced by a low growl emanating from the center of the chamber. In the moment of silence, a figure swirled into view. Tall, shrouded in shadow, its face obscured. Welcome, seekers. You have come to the crossroads of your fates. The voice rippled like silk over cold steel. What do you want? Lisa shot back, defiance fronting her fear. I offer you truth or hope. Choose wisely. Jessica exchanged glances with Lisa. Could they trust it? Or was this yet another play, another cruel trick of the darkness surrounding them? Suddenly, the walls themselves began to pulse, alive with energy, joining in an eerie chant. Choose. 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 The choice loomed heavy in the air. To confront the truth of their own fears or to gamble on blind hope? Each path promised its own kind of peril, and the shadows thrummed, hungry for their decision. What do we do now? Jessica whispered, her pulse racing, tightening like a knot in her chest. All at once, a door appeared at the far end of the chamber, gleaming, an exit from this nightmarish realm. But dark figures flickered in and out, hovering just outside its reach. Lisa's hand shook as she pointed. We have to make a choice. Just before they could respond, the laughter returned, louder, seeming to mock their hesitation. Shadows closed in, voices urging them forward. Which path would they take? The promise of hope or the terrifying truth they could no longer ignore? And as Jessica opened her mouth to speak, a chilling thought pierced her mind. What if the choice itself was the nightmare? The air thickened, the shadows closing tighter. Would they act before it was too late? Jessica and Lisa stood motionless, their breaths heavy like lead weights as the shadows pressed around them, fangs glinting like sharpened teeth. The laughter, once distant, now swirled close. It felt as if the walls themselves were urging them to relent, to choose. We need to decide, Jess. Lisa's voice trembled, urgency bubbling over with each panting word. The figure in the shadows trembled, its outline ever shifting, waiting with a sinister patience. Choose wisely, it cooed, the words dripping like honey. Behind it, the options stood out: truth or hope. Jessica's heart raced. What did either truly mean? Was truth revelation, or would it cut deeper than the shadow's claws? Hope had coaxed them here. Hope had blinded them. A memory flickered in Jessica's mind, a moment with her son, laughter echoing down the grocery aisle as they picked out cereal. That feeling of safety. I can't lose this, she whispered, knowing it was more than a choice between doors. The specters of her friends twisted and contorted, weaving in and out of the shadows, some reaching out for her, while others cowered in fear. The decision was more grim than just escape, it was the essence of what remained true in the world. Jessica, Lisa urged again, clutching her arm tightly. We can't stall anymore. Okay. Jessica finally blurted out, her voice edged with desperation. We go through the door that promises hope. With that, they took a few shaky steps forward, determination sparking in their chests. As they approached, the gleaming door's surface shimmered like liquid gold, enticing yet ominous. It felt like a prayer, a last grasp at something solid in this swirling sea of horror. But as their fingers grazed the doorknob, a terrible roar erupted from the shadows, the figure lunged, growing in mass. You think you can escape? You will belong to us. Dread seeped back into their hearts, the oppressive weight of inevitability pressing down. No! We won't let you! Jessica cried, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire. She gripped the doorknob, twisting it hard, her heart pounding. The door swung open with a quiet groan, revealing a blinding light that surged and swept them up, bathing them in warmth. The cacophony of laughter faded, as if the shadows had been swallowed by the light, and Jessica and Lisa stepped through, feeling relief wash over them. The world solidified, colors brighter than she remembered. They emerged in a vast, open space, a park bathed in the soft glow of the sun, laughter of children dancing through the air like a sweet melody. Did we make it? Lisa breathed, incredulity coloring her voice as they looked around. Jessica's eyes flicked to the familiar playground equipment. There, a small figure ran forward, laughter bubbling forth. Her son. Hope shot through her like lightning, banishing the dread that clung to her soul. She fell to her knees, joy erupting from deep within her chest. I'm home. Lisa gazed at her, a smile breaking her fear. Instinctively, Jessica grabbed her hand, pulling her into the blissful embrace of safety. Together, they shared the warmth of the sun, its golden rays washing away the nightmare they narrowly escaped. But even as they relished this moment, a whisper lingered on the breeze. You can't run forever. The voice was distant, teasing, uncertain. Jessica shivered but shook it off. She had made her choice. She had clung to hope, and for now, it had saved them. As they locked gazes, there was a promise of resilience, a silent understanding. They had each other, and together, they could face whatever darkness came their way again. One step at a time, they would keep moving forward. So with one last glance into the bright abyss behind them, they turned toward the playground, laughter rising all around like a shield against the shadows they had left behind. And that, perhaps, was the ultimate victory. Now, listen up. This is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. I want to know what you think about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's do this.